Originally in Spanish, Aneeka's comment from previous conversations.
Then there's the matter of karma. Don't eat animals because you condemn your soul, many say. Well, this is tricky. It is not about karma, it's about ethics, about defending animals. Karma is something you believe or take upon yourself or not. As such, there is no karma, only the one you bring upon yourself. But being on earth, you either eat or you get eaten, one way or another. And you can't escape that as long as you're alive. So a lot of animals get eaten and it's horrible. But you also get eaten in other ways, including constant financial and energetic exploitation, lush. As long as you're alive, you can't escape that. You can't even walk down the sidewalk or take your bike without killing a huge number of insects, ants, and the like. They say that they eat death with the meat. That's manipulation again, sentimental. And it goes hand in hand with modern agendas of depopulation and control over people, because vegans tend to be loving and peaceful. Therefore, manageable and manipulatable sheep would turn the other cheek, or New Age religions of don't look at anything bad because it lowers your frequency. A malnourished population without energy and fighting spirit is easy to manipulate, especially if it's full of sodium fluoride. We Taigetans feel very strong physically until a small and short but super athletic Svarunian, Athena Swaruu, arrives and beats us all in sports and by far. And we notice that she's highly carnivorous. We just can't compete with her.
October 2022. The subject of the carnivore diet, or the subject of the vegan diet, or both, is an extremely hot and controversial subject on Earth, and even lends itself to disputes. Also, I want people to know that it is not extraterrestrial information per se. That can and should be investigated by themselves as to which diet suits them best. This is just what I have seen and the conclusions that Taigetans have drawn themselves. I will answer what I can, but I do not have, and no one has, the ultimate truth on this subject. Everyone should investigate what is good for them to consume, and everyone should take responsibility for what goes into their mouths. What would be the inconvenience for our Lyrian brothers planting certain non-invasive vegetables with nutritional properties unknown on Earth? They do not have the properties of the earth, the soil, the atmosphere, and the ecosystem itself to support the cultivation of such plants, making it impossible for them to grow on Earth. Can cholesterol be hereditary? Cholesterol is not a problem. Having high cholesterol is not an indication of any physical problem, and it is necessary. This is already coming out, even in advanced medical literature on Earth. Hereditary or not, for me everything is hereditary, and at the same time, it is under the individual's control. So he or she is not a victim of his or her genes. Is buckwheat bread healthier because it does not contain gluten? The less gluten, the better. Yes, that type of wheat is better, as a step in the right direction. However, all variants of wheat are highly neurotoxic to humans. Could you give an example of a healthy full-day menu for us? It is up to each person to carefully inform themselves about metabolism and nutrients in general, and what they like personally. But I would insist on a diet high in animal fats and protein, few fruits, vegetables and greens in moderation, and sugars to a minimum or none at all. Which vegetables contain less sugar when consumed? Since all vegetables translate into sugar, the ones that cause this reaction the least are the cruciferous ones, that is, broccoli and cauliflower. What is your suggestion to maintain a harmonized, balanced diet? It depends on each person, but basically a highly carnivorous diet and only 1 or 2 times a day, preferably 1, would be what the firm scientific evidence indicates to be the ideal human diet. Do you know how much meat and animal fats we are advised to eat per day? Is it true that consuming more than 1 gram per kilogram of weight is harmful to the kidneys? Eating meat does not hurt the kidneys or anything else in the body. That is a lie. They say it is due to saturation of protein chains. The evidence shows that it is not so. It is only a correlation that has occurred in certain study subjects in experiments with little or no scientific control. The amount of meat to be consumed daily is according to personal satiety. Just that. Do you know anything about the blood group diet? I do not know about the blood group diet as such, but I can observe that some people simply do not like meat, although the reason for this is very complex and has to do with the type and functioning of each organism. I relate it to the fact that the organism is already conditioned to reject animal fats due to years of habit, because it has also been proven that they can lose enzymes and digestive capabilities over time. This because of a diet based on carbohydrates and with a diabetic or pre-diabetic conditioning reaction. However, at their insistence, they could also transfer to a more carnivorous diet. And no, eating meat does not cause cancers, nor is it carcinogenic when cooked on frying pans or charcoal, since for thousands of years that is how meat was cooked on Earth. Is it true that we perhaps have to eat meat because we have some reptilian genes after their interference in the past? Speaking of races, reptilians are far from being the only carnivores, and there are a number of reasons to require meat in the diet. I don't think there is any firm data linking the need to eat meat with strictly reptilian genes, since what has been proven is that the human being is a mixture of countless races, not only 21 or 22, and we have already explained why, in one or another measure or quantity, also varying from individual to individual. To me, this argument seems more like part of the sentimental manipulation of those who wish to impose the vegan diet. From here, we can clearly see the imposition agenda of such a vegan diet, with a plan to control the population, using their empathy towards animals as a weapon against the health of mankind. The people who impose such an agenda are the ones who instead allege that there is an agenda of the cattle ranchers to impose the carnivorous diet, yet do not compare the huge pro-meat campaigns with the media hype in favor of veganism, which in itself is indicative of what is behind it. From the point of view of the big food companies, it is simply more profitable for them to industrialize plant-based food, since it is very easy for them to cultivate large tracts of land on an industrial scale than to achieve the same with animal farming. This is only at the cost effectiveness and monetary gains level. In the veganism video, Swaruu said that this information caused a lot of turmoil among the races, and that everything was in progress. How is the situation now? Are they on board with the topic of veganism? I understand that at the time it caused some stir among the races observing all this, but at the moment there is no reaction to it, other than acceptance of the new data. Many who are against this information are vegetarians and vegans who claim to be absolutely healthy for decades and absolutely in no denial. Why then? Do they belong to the small percentage of vegans who are not affected by not eating meat? And why doesn't it affect them? Does it have to do with blood type, perhaps? First of all, no diet is suitable for the whole population. Some can be vegan, some can't, and some genuinely cannot be vegan because they get seriously ill. The point here is that everyone should take responsibility for what they put in their mouths and not use this as an excuse to fight with one another. They should mutually respect each other. What I have seen is that the vegan-vegetarian community happens to be highly aggressive against those who are not vegan-vegetarians, even more so against carnivores, which collapses the exact claim that vegans make that carnivores are aggressive. Such vegans should not take for granted that there is only one diet suitable for everyone. Everyone has a different metabolism that has developed with different requirements for a very wide range of reasons, ranging from cultural to metabolic problems that they have brought on themselves throughout their lives. The other thing is that we have observed that there are people who tolerate the vegan diet more than others, when many of these people who claim to be healthy actually have very strong health problems and are merely in denial as a result of their attachment to the ethical reasons. In other words, it should be seen if they are really as healthy as they claim to be. I also fully accept that there may be a healthy vegan population, but as I said above, this cannot apply to everyone. Another important point here is that vegans themselves claim that you have to do the vegan diet the right way. And by this they mean that they must keep a very strict itinerary of components of each meal. And they themselves say that it is necessary to consume supplements. About the supplements, the moment you have to consume them would indicate that the vegan diet is not sufficient for the healthy sustenance of the human body. And even worse, many supplements on the market are made with animal components, even if the box or bottle says that they are vegan friendly. As happens all the time on Earth, what is on the ingredients list of a product is not necessarily what is inside. And this varies from brand to brand, and within each brand of vegan supplements. Being that, in reality, healthy vegans who consume supplements to be healthy are eating their meat cuts of all kinds, but in the form of pills, which is why their veganism turns out to be an illusion. Again, this varies widely and doesn't apply to everyone. but it is what we have found. We have not found that it has anything to do with the blood type. For us here, there is no demonstrable correlation. But what we have seen is that it has to do with the type of each person's metabolism. How efficient it is to metabolize what type of food. And this is something particular and specific to each person. That is why each person should investigate and be responsible for what they eat. There is no perfect diet for all human beings. My last point here is that since the vegan diet is very complex to follow correctly, it is not possible for the vast majority of people simply because they do not have the economic resources to get the components, the specific vegetables and the supplements that are usually very expensive. So the great majority of people try to be vegan vegetarians, consuming what they can, ending up getting sick because of the high consumption of carbohydrates and the malnutrition that goes with it. The truth is that the vegan vegetarian diet is only possible to be followed in the right way by those who have a lot of economic resources. Very important point here, with few exceptions. Many comment, meat is full of all kinds of crap and chemicals, filled with pure hormones and antibiotics. If we eat meat, we are going to fill ourselves with this crap too, right? And which is better, to eat meat with all that in it, or no meat but only fish, for example? I am talking about eating meat, not about eating contaminated meat. What I say here is based on meat in its natural state. The hormones and antibiotics, among other things, is another kind of problem, the contaminated food problem. And this happens also, and to an even greater degree, with all vegetarian products. It is true that the contaminant components in each are different, but what is found in fruits and vegetables, and more so in grains, is equally or more harmful than what is in meat. Just to mention a few vegetable contaminants, there are insecticides such as the infamous Roundup that is now found on virtually every crop around the world. But the list of contaminants in fertilizers is very long, with Roundup being just one of many. It also so happens that many fertilizer companies claim that they have removed one or another product for being harmful or controversial, when in fact they just change the name and allege that it is different, or only change a few minor things in the formula. What many have argued in favor of being carnivores is that despite these problems of contaminants in meats, it is still a step in the right direction. If the metabolism of the person in question cannot process so many plants, since the body only has to deal with the contaminants in the meat, and not as in the case of the vegan diet, where the body has to deal with those contaminants in the plants, and also with the harmful effects inherent in the plant itself and their adverse effects on their bodies. I should also mention that plants and grains are highly contaminated and altered by being genetically modified. And nowadays, it is almost impossible to avoid having to consume something genetically modified in plant-based foods. And genetically modified does affect the human body greatly, and in a very negative way. There is or exists transgenic meat, but again, this is a matter of contaminated food, not the meat itself. The same applies to fish. It depends on what fish and whether or not it is contaminated. Of course, objectively eating fish is very good, but the same thing happens as with plants and meats. Everything is contaminated. Even deep-sea fish with issues such as high mercury content in them and radioactive contamination from events like Fukushima, in addition to the large amount of industrial chemical pollutants dumped on the coasts proceeding from industries and all human activity. So it's not that something is better than the other, but what everyone can find and what everyone is comfortable eating. Some say the human digestive system is not suitable for animal consumption. It is longer. What do you think? Those who defend the meat consumption say that it is the opposite. The digestive system is comparatively short and suitable for meat consumption. I am of the opinion that it is mixed for consuming mostly meat, but also some fruits and vegetables. It's not that it is one thing or the other. Humans are different animals than others. Others claim that they do not have characteristic carnivorous fangs. But this again, for me, does not apply because humans do not need to hunt with their mouths. They use their brains. Human fangs being their knives and table forks. Humans are complex and use their environment and culture, not depending on fangs. Also, the denture indicates that the human being is mixed, with tendency to be carnivorous because of its front cutting teeth. Humans chew the meat before swallowing, while traditionally carnivorous animals swallow it in chunks. The food processing systems differ, but they get to the same point. My question: what I still don't totally understand, and I saw questions about this, is how after centuries of being close to the earth, examining everything related to humans, their DNA, their biology, you haven't seen this before. And it was only when Bill Gates started promoting veganism that you noticed something strange. For hundreds and thousands of years, the human being has been mostly carnivorous, being that only towards the last half of the 20th century, veganism has spread due to the cabal's influence. Why this has not been seen before, I doubt. It is simply that everything that is happening is concentrated in the now, in this historical moment. What are the best fruits, and how many pieces of fruit would be ideal to eat daily without exceeding yourself by ingesting too much sugar? I look at them all as more or less the same, but it is really up to each person to look for the glycogen reaction index of each fruit. Many who defend the carnivorous diet claim with strong data that all the vitamins and minerals found in fruits are also found in red meat, with countless cases of people who have only eaten meat for decades and are super healthy, contrary to what vegans argue. I have seen many cases where eating a purely carnivorous diet has reversed serious health problems, such as allergies, autoimmune diseases like lupus, diabetes, kidney problems, and cardiovascular problems, as well as obesity. Everything disappears with the consumption of meat with nothing or little else. The fruits themselves I would relegate to being naturally occurring treats. Many vegans claim that the fructose in fruits is not processed in the body the same way as sugar, and that it is less malignant or less strong with less glycogenic reaction. And this is true. The problem is that all fruits contain high amounts of refined sugar as well as fructose. It makes no difference whether it has fructose or not. Is it best to eat almost all foods raw, steamed, grilled? In general, it is better to eat raw or steamed vegetables. As for meats, I definitely recommend cooking them well, because heat does destroy contaminants, at least in part, depending on which ones. And it also destroys harmful bacteria or any parasites that may be inside. I insist that to cook meat over charcoal or firewood does not produce cancer, and it is the healthiest way to consume meat, as long as it is cooked well. The data that meat produces cancer come from pseudo-experiments that cannot be corroborated, nor can they adhere to the scientific method, being that they are mostly paid for by pharmaceutical companies and by people with interests in promoting veganism. What happens to the hormones that are released when animals are slaughtered? They remain impregnated in the muscle, they say. Is it true that when we eat meat, we also consume those hormones that are harmful to our organism? I have not seen any data to support this. However, by pure logic, I think that they do reach the organism of the people who consume them. However, the fire during cooking does alter the hormones that are present, destroying them to some extent. Even so, human beings have consumed meat in large quantities for thousands of years. I do not see these hormones as a factor that the human body regards as a contaminant. It is part of the meat itself. I don't have any more data. I could further extend this from the hormones released during slaughter to the frequencies of suffering and fear that the animal goes through. However, here we are already entering the section of ethics and spirituality, which also turns out to be extremely complex. What about alkaline diet, especially for cancer patients? We have found that the alkaline diet idea is totally false and causes accelerated deterioration of the body. The body needs to be alkaline in some places and acidic in others, with a very delicate balance dynamic. Imposing an alkaline diet leads most people to serious malnutrition problems, because at low acidity, the body cannot absorb key nutrients such as protein, especially animal proteins and fats. The alkaline diet seems to be an accelerant for general metabolic problems, especially related to diabetes. Many people ask about the ketone diet. Ketogenic is a term for a low carbohydrate diet. The idea is that you get more calories from protein and fat and less from carbohydrates. We know that diet well and have studied it. It goes very much hand in hand with meat consumption. Yes, we highly recommend it. It gives good results in the human organism, and I myself, without knowing it or naming it, have always followed it. This is how I eat, with the exception of desserts that break that from time to time. But that's in my case. To heal the body, you will have to follow that diet to the letter, or it won't work. The key is patience and persistence. And a super quick question. Swaruu of Elra said that almond milk was bad. Aneeka and you say it's not bad, right? I would have to go look into that more, but I don't see why it's bad. My question, something I don't quite understand. It has been said that the vegetarian-vegan diet was implemented in India. But by whom? Andromedans or the Cabal? If Andromedans, why did they implement it? Because they themselves are vegans and thought that the vegan diet also served humans? Or did they have an agenda? And what agenda did they have for that part of the world? We can only speculate who, but speculate with data. It is known that that area had a lot of Andromedan influence, and they are vegans, but they are not humans either. So imposing one race's diet on another will not yield good results. It could have come from landowners, kings, and people with power, as they realized that people were becoming more docile with the consumption of vegetables and no meat, as a method of local control developed in the years after the Andromedan intervention, and perhaps inspired by their teachings.